But to get into daily driving this car, now, I absolutely love my Civic Si. Don't get me wrong. But this car has a lot of good features and a lot of bad features. It's slightly faster than a regular Civic. It's a manual. It's got a nicer interior. There's a little tiny spoiler on the back, which I like the look of it, but it doesn't do much. Being a front wheel drive car, you don't need downforce on the back. At the same time, you do need more downforce on the front. I mean, I can spin the tires like there's no tomorrow in this car, and that brings me to my first negative point: wheel hop. So if you have ever driven this car or been in this car in the rain or anything like that, this car doesn't spin the tires like a normal car does a burnout down the street when it loses grip. This car just hops, and it's like a violent short hop that I really don't understand. I mean, I've been looking it up on why the car does it, and you can buy aftermarket parts for it. You can buy the stiffening engine mounting brackets. You can buy different suspension pieces that'll help it, but all that stuff is so expensive for a wheel hop. If you're making crazy horsepower with this car, then yeah, you'll probably need those in the future anyway. But for me, who's not making crazy horsepower and at the time being doesn't plan on making crazy horsepower, you really don't need that. So I'm getting on the highway now, and I'm in 4th gear, and this is a 4th gear pull. So I had a 2018 Civic before this, as you guys know, and I absolutely loved that car. I've said that in previous videos. It was my first SI. It was just such a great car. And I think they made every aspect of this car better except for one. The 2020 has the lower final drive ratio, which makes you lose 2 miles per gallon while increasing acceleration, they say. But I sense nothing wrong with the acceleration in my 2018. If you want to accelerate, you downshift. That's how it works when you drive a manual. Like, you don't drive a manual if you don't want to be shifting all the time. So, I mean, on the highway, I'm in 6th gear. I'm doing 65 miles an hour. And the RPMs are just slightly higher than they were before, and it makes it a lot louder inside the car. So, yeah, I guess that doesn't really matter to me since I have a massive sound system in this car. Can't hear the road noise anyway. But it's still something that should have been thought about in the factory or in the design room when they were going through it, going, let's lower it. Well, there's a big difference slowing down 3 miles an hour to the engine noise and speeding up 3 miles an hour and getting above 3,000 RPMs in this car. So I use the lane keep assist, which is a button on the steering wheel. It's off every time you get in the car. So you have to turn it on yourself. I like that because sometimes I want to drive with it and sometimes I don't. So it gives me the option. If I don't turn it on when I get in the car and then I get on the highway and want it, I realize, oh, I forgot to turn it on. I'll turn it on, no harm done. If it came on every time when I turned the car on, I think that would get pretty annoying. So there's the lane mitigation system, which I've seen other YouTubers talk about their 2020 SI, and they say that it comes on every time they get in the car and they have to turn it off. My car doesn't do that. When I turned it off the first time, it hasn't come back on since. I can shut off the car, turn on the car, it's still off. If I hit the button right now, just turned it on. And I didn't turn it off when I got in the car. So I don't understand what other people are talking about when they say they have to turn it off every time they get in the car. I really don't have that issue with my car. Now, something new for the 2020 that I didn't have in the 2018 as well is the auto headlights. And I absolutely love that feature. I didn't think I'd like it. I didn't think it would make any difference to me. But there's some parts, even in my own neighborhood, where if you're driving at night and it's like dark spot in the road or something like that, the headlights automatically come on, they let you see, and if another car comes up or something, it knows and shuts it off. It's really, really nice. The headlights are also much better on this car than they were on my other one. If anyone out there is driving an older Civic, they know the headlights are not great. I replaced my old ones with a brighter, like the highest ultra model I could find online. And all the reviews for those headlights said they burn out in 3-4 months because they're so bright. But I got well over a year out of mine, and I drove the car all the way up to Vermont, not leaving until after the like sunset. So I did quite a few hours on those headlights over the course of well over a year, and they didn't start to dim, they didn't get less bright, they didn't burn out, absolutely nothing. But this car has way better headlights. Now that they went to the LED headlights, it makes such a big difference, and you don't have to upgrade it, and if you did, it would be pretty expensive to try and upgrade it. So that was a nice feature that they put in this car. So, a thing that I don't think a lot of people have talked about, but I want to talk about, is what gas you run in your Civic Si. I run 93. That's available near me. It's readily available. Every place has it. You can get 87, 89. Some places have 81, and then every place has 93, just like 87 and 89. And I always run 93. Because when I first got my other Civic, I did a little test, and I let it break in, period. I did my test at about 7,000 miles on the car, and I ran 6 tanks of premium, or no, I ran 6 tanks of regular gas, and I ran 1 tank of premium without tracking it. And then I ran 6 tanks of premium. So I gave it 1 tank for it to switch over and the knock control to kick in to know that there was premium in there, so I wouldn't have skewed results because I was switching from regular to premium for half of the first tank of premium or a full tank of premium. So I got, on average, about 24% better gas mileage in premium. Now that makes absolutely no sense to me, because that's not really how it works. It is to a degree, but not 24%. So I don't know if running the higher octane was giving my car a little more pep, and so I wouldn't floor it all the time, and maybe that's why I got such better gas mileage. But when I had about 20,000 miles on the car, I did the test again. And that time I got 18% better gas mileage with premium over the course of 6 tanks of regular and 6 tanks of premium. So if the price of gas is less than around 20% difference between regular and premium, which lately it has been, then I go for the highest grade. Yeah, it's a little more expensive to pay for it, but I get much better gas mileage, so I end up spending less money in the long run. And I could do the equations and work out whatever I got, like how many cents per gallon or whatever you want to know. But if you want to know, let me know. But I don't think anyone's really going to care too much about that. And I just thought it was a topic that no one really thinks about, but you should. Just because you see regular being cheap and you want to save money, think about maybe I'll get better gas mileage and actually be cheaper per mile buying the premium than it would be buying the regular. So I've been on the highway for, I don't know, roughly 10 miles or so, and I've had adaptive cruise control on the entire time, and it makes driving a breeze. I drove this car down to the beach a dozen times, down towards Atlantic City. I've driven it, like I said, my old one to Vermont, and driving to Vermont with cruise control is great, but driving somewhere with adaptive cruise control is much, much better. It's just such a small thing that you would think wouldn't make a big difference, and it really does. So this car has harder suspension than the regular Civics. It has, as I've said in my first video of should you switch to a 2020 Civic Si, it's either got hard suspension or break your back suspension. And I've had people that have gotten in my car, and especially older people, I mean, even my parents have been in my car, my grandfather's been in my car, and we can all agree that this car is not a great car as a soft, cushiony daily driver. So my mom we're a big Honda family. We have 4 Hondas in our family. We've had probably 15 of them between all of us. And we have a Pilot, a CR-V, an Accord, and my Civic right now. There's been plenty of others. But the Accord definitely drives like the softest car. The CR-V is a little older, the Pilot's older. They're on their last leg at this point, but I mean, they're going on 200,000 miles. So Honda makes great cars, but the Accord is definitely the softest suspension-wise car we have. I wouldn't say it floats over the road, but it's comfortable to daily drive. It's got all the same features my car has, and that was standard in 2017. So this car being a hard suspension and harder suspension when you put it in sport mode is really something to think about. Because if you're going to be putting a lot of miles on your car, and I do put a lot of miles on this car, I lease it with 15,000 miles a year. So if you put a lot of miles on the car, then it might be something to think about of, is this the car for me? I mean, yes, it's a cool car to drive. It's a fun, sporty car to drive. I wouldn't say it's too fast, but it is peppy. I mean, you put your foot down when you're starting, and if your girlfriend's in the passenger seat, she's gonna look at you pretty pissed off in this car. And that's a good gauge of how fast a car is. When you have someone sitting in the passenger seat and you floor it, and they look at you and go, yeah, don't do that. You know you bought the right car. But there's other factors to it that you may not be thinking about, and so overall, I love this car. I don't plan on keeping this car at the end of the lease, just because, well, one, who knows what's going to happen over the course of the 3 years. I've had cars where I've leased them and the dealership forgot to put oil in them, and I drove 100 miles without oil in the car, and at the end of the lease got to hand that car back in and say, your problem with the engine now, not mine. So I like leasing cars. That way, in the first 3 years, one, if anything happens, you're not tied down to the car. I can always hand it back and go, I'm done with it. Or you can trade it into another dealership if it's worth more than your buyout. So let me know what you guys think of your 2017, 18, 19, 20 SIs, and tell me if I missed anything. But daily driving this car is a love-hate relationship. I absolutely love the car overall, but are there things that I would change about it if I could afford to? Definitely. Definitely. So you kind of gotta make the best decision for yourself. There's no specific plan for which car is perfect for you, because every single person's different.